Hawaiian snowstorm brought strong winds, power outages, flooding and snow to the tropical paradise this weekend.
Winds reaching speeds of up to 190 miles per hour uprooted trees, leaving them across roadways and power lines. At Kapiolani Park in Honolulu, winds took down kiawe trees believed to be nearly a century old, reported local station KNHL. Snow in the Polipoli Springs State Recreation Area on the island of Maui might be a first. Sam Lemo, administrator of Hawaii's Department of Land and Natural Resources, said that, quote, "We rarely, if ever, have seen the combination of record-high onshore waves coupled with gale-force winds."
A dangerous winter storm swept through Hawaii, bringing down trees and power lines, which caused blackouts. Lifeguards scrambled to keep people safe from giant waves, which crashed over walls and onto roads.
One of the hardest hit areas as far as coastal flooding is concerned is here at Haleiwa, where ocean water spilled over onto the roadway. In some places it was almost a foot deep earlier, but the swell here, nothing compared to further down the road on the North Shore near Sharks Cove. North Shore lifeguard Brian Phillips keeps a watchful eye on Sharks Cove.
This wave event is on another level, super dangerous. The waves are washing over the roads in multiple places. It's a weather event and a wave event that people have never seen in some of their lifetimes.
Yeah, and then I also have video of you down there on the rocks. Look at that guy right there. I mean,
hey!
But even during our brief interview,
I'll go down with you.
Ryan's focus was on safety. We spotted a young man on the rocks trying to get that perfect picture. People don't listen, right?
Nobody listens. Yeah, just stay back behind caution tape and heed our warnings. We'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Over at Waimea Bay,
I would love to see a huge swell. I would love to see a 60-foot wave. I've been out here about 7 times, 8 times, and this is probably the biggest I've seen it.
another beach closure forced sightseers to watch from the highway.
We came out here to see the big waves because I just love weather, just love the weather. And I live in New Hampshire, so this is a big difference for New Hampshire, no snow.
It was just a little past noon when intense winds began changing things on the North Shore.
Well, I've never seen anything like this. I live in Oregon, and we don't have anything like this. It's wonderful.
Some of the worst conditions along Sunset Beach.
We have wind in West Virginia that's a lot colder, but this is awesome. We don't have this view and this much wind. It's just once in a lifetime right here.
Brent Williamson says looking out at the ocean is a reminder of just how powerful Mother Nature can be.
Sometimes bothersome, but without insects, scientists say life on Earth is under threat. A global review of studies into insect populations shows they're declining 8 times faster than mammals, birds, and reptiles. At that rate, the world's insects could disappear completely within 100 years.
The base of the ecosystem is built upon insects, and if the insects disappear, then the whole ecosystems will collapse.
If the insects disappear, we're going to disappear too. The whole agricultural system depends, among other things, on the insects that are most vulnerable to extinction to control the other insects which compete with us for our crops. So this is a brilliant paper, but at the same time one that scares the pants off of any biologist who understands how the world works.
It's not just the place of insects in the food chain that has scientists worried. They pollinate plants, purify the soil and waterways, recycle waste, and have an important role in pest control. And their numbers are declining by 2.5% every year. While climate change and urbanisation are factors, scientists point to the intensification of agriculture environmentally friendly.
It's an overly optimistic paper because it mentions the things that we should be doing in order to avoid the extinction of the insects. The point is, we're not doing any of them.
This isn't the first time scientists from around the world have issued a warning about threats to humanity. The first was back in 1993, the second was just last year. The problem is, they say, too few are paying attention. Miriam Nahond, Al Jazeera.
Let's go out west now to where they're getting pummeled with feet of snow. ABC's Will Carr is there in Mount Hood, Oregon with all the latest. Good morning, Will.
Good morning, Amy. This snow has been relentless. It continues to pound this area. We have at least 2 to 3 feet of this light and fluffy snow out here this morning. When we were driving by overnight, we didn't even realize that this was a car because it is buried in so much of this snow. And as residents are continuing to dig out, there's more bad weather on the way. Overnight, dangerous winter weather slamming the Pacific Northwest. This is the 4th snowstorm to hit Seattle in the past week alone. More than 20 inches of snow have blanketed the area just this month. Snow and ice creating a winter nightmare for commuters in Washington. Watch as this red car slides right off the road. Snow shutting down interstates and highways, causing numerous crashes, 2 tractor trailers colliding. One state trooper says these are the worst conditions he's seen in almost a decade. A steady stream of plows scraping ice off the runways. Thousands of passengers stranded. This is the most snow SeaTac has ever seen in the month of February. The region getting so much snow so quickly, the roof on this house collapsing, seriously injuring an elderly man. This morning, fears heavy snow and rain could trigger landslides. We're expecting more snow and rain up and down the West Coast in the coming days. George.
Geek.com reports that a winter storm has hit the Hawaii Islands, with officials warning residents of gusty winds, rain, high surf, and even snow. Hawaii's Department of Land and Natural Resources Division of State Parks is reporting that for perhaps the first time ever, snow has fallen in a Hawaii state park. Video captured by Kimberly Espana and posted by Maui Watch on Instagram shows roads at the Polipoli State Park blanketed in white. Footage of snow falling in Haleakala National Park and people enjoying the rare occurrence in Maui have also been posted to social media. The DLNR said the forecasters were spot on with their predictions, calling the storms an unprecedented.
Reuters reports a senior Revolutionary Guards commander said on Monday that Iran would demolish cities in Israel to the ground if the United States attacked the Islamic Republic. Yadallah Javani, the Guard's deputy head for political affairs, was quoted as saying, "The United States does not have the courage to shoot a single bullet at us, despite all its defensive and military assets. But if they attack us, we will raze Tel Aviv and Haifa to the ground." He was speaking at a rally celebrating the 40th anniversary of the Islamic Revolution. Reuters reports North Korea has continued to produce bomb fuel while in denuclearization talks with the United States, and may have produced enough in the past year to add as many as 7 nuclear weapons to its arsenal. This is according to a study released just weeks before a planned second summit between the North Korean leader and U.S. President Donald Trump. However, the country's freeze on nuclear and missile testing since 2017 means that North Korea's weapons program probably poses less of a threat than it did at the end of last year.
300 Filipinos, mostly children, have been infected with measles from January 1st to February 9th this year. Health authorities said February 11th the cases included 70 confirmed deaths. Last week, the health department announced a measles outbreak in Metro Manila and parts of Luzon and Central and Eastern Visayas. Most of the cases were recorded in the national capital region, followed by Calabarzon, warned a possible measles outbreak due to the low turnout rate in previous immunization campaigns. Parents have been reluctant to have their children vaccinated amid the dengue vaccine mess. President Rodrigo Duterte will reportedly take part in an upcoming information drive aimed at gaining back the Filipino parents' confidence in the government's immunization.
Pakistan is facing nationwide fuel shortages, and it's affecting all sectors of the economy, from major industries to consumers. Kamal Haider has this report from Islamabad.
It's another cold, wintry morning in Islamabad, and the tea houses, of course, are doing brisk business because of the cold weather. But hotels across the country, including businesses such as bakeries, are complaining that the Suez Northern Gas Pipeline system is not able to give them the gas necessary to keep their businesses running. The country is seeing a shortfall of almost 50% and above when it comes to the gas delivery pipeline system because of delays at the shipping end, and that also caused by rough weather. Consumers such as these are already complaining that they're paying far too much for their gas bills.
Our previous bills were 60 to 65,000, but from last month it increased incredibly. I went to gas office, they said gas is going to be expensive and you have to pay it. We have this small business and we have to pay sellers and other expenses. we are thinking to shut down our business.
We are fed up of paying bills. We are not able to give education to our children. We are paying electricity bills or gas bills. This is just tormenting us. We've come here at the gas office, but no one's listening to us.
This is indeed a serious crisis for a country which is already cash-strapped. The Pakistani rupee is losing its value, and it seems the people here across the country are now also losing their patience.
A seemingly endless petrol queue in San Cristobal, one of dozens that goes on and on. More than 200 cars until we lose count, all waiting and praying that they'll be able to fill up before the pump runs dry. People sleep in their vehicles, like Luis Hevia, who's been in the queue for 3 days.
Look, here we are suffering. We haven't eaten. We smell like monkeys and all these people jumping the queue. How do they expect this country to function? We need support.
In the country with the world's largest oil reserves, scarcity of petrol isn't new, especially here in Táchira, which shares a border with neighboring Colombia.
This has been happening for at least 3 years, but every day it's worse.
The list of reasons is long. With hyperinflation surpassing 1,000,000%, petrol is practically free.
This bill is worthless, and if people don't have change, they don't have to pay at all.
And this has been feeding a widespread smuggling racket. Vehicles like this one have not one but 2 fuel tanks that can hold more than 200 liters of the world's cheapest petrol, much of which makes its way across the border into Colombia. It is a black market, a lucrative business that's controlled by Colombian paramilitary and left-wing guerrilla groups. But it's an open secret that it would be impossible without the participation of Venezuela's armed forces and police, who are supposed to patrol the border. Freddy the border.
Because the price difference between Colombia and Venezuela is too large. Here, 20 liters cost 20 bolívares. You cross the border, and that same container costs 1 million. The profit is extraordinary, unimaginable for these mafias.
He says authorities are cracking down on corrupt officials, although locals insist it hasn't made a dent. 6 months ago, President Nicolás Maduro had promised to raise prices to make smuggling less attractive, but still hasn't done so. And there's another problem. Venezuela's state oil company is producing only a fraction of what it used to and must import petrol. That's now even harder because of new U.S. economic sanctions. In the meantime, ever-resourceful residents of Táchira have introduced a new service for those who can afford it, paying for someone to take your place to spend the night in the queue. Lucia Newman, San Cristobal, Venezuela.
According to CNN, the French Interior Minister has announced a 74% rise in anti-Semitic acts across the country over the past year, amid a series of incidents in Paris in recent days, including the desecration of a memorial to a murdered Jewish man. On Monday, municipal workers discovered that a tree planted in memory of Ilan Halimi in a Paris suburb was chopped down, while another was cut in two. Halimi, 23, was kidnapped, tortured, and murdered in an anti-Semitic attack in 2006. The attack on Halimi's memorial is just one of at least 4 widely reported acts of anti-Semitism in Paris since Sunday.
According to Reuters.com, a senior commander in Iran's Revolutionary Guard said on Monday that Tehran will not withdraw its forces from the region, dismissing U.S. calls that Iranian regional influence should be curbed. Brigadier General Hossein Salami, deputy head of Iran's Revolutionary Guards, told the press, "The enemy cannot ask us to leave the region. They must leave the region. We will help any Muslim anywhere in the world."
Reuters reports officials signed a short-term agreement on Sunday to boost South Korea's contribution toward the upkeep of U.S. troops on the peninsula, after a previous deal lapsed amid U.S. President Donald Trump's call for the South to pay more. About 28,500 U.S. troops are stationed in South Korea. The new deal must still be approved by South Korea's parliament, but it would boost its contribution to 1.03 trillion won, which is about $890 million, from 960 billion won
Bring
in
you to Washington
2018.
now, and the looming prospect of another government shutdown. Congress has until midnight Friday to strike a deal, but talks on Capitol Hill have stalled, and the president is signaling again that he might go around Congress by declaring a national emergency to build his border wall. Our senior congressional correspondent Mary Bruce has the latest. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, George. Well, negotiators had hoped to unveil a compromise deal today, but instead this morning, once again, talks are at an impasse. In fact, I'm told the two sides are actually further apart this morning than they were last week. And the big sticking point isn't just the wall. Democrats are now demanding to limit the number of beds at detention centers. They're hoping to force the White House to focus on detaining undocumented immigrants with criminal records instead of otherwise law-abiding immigrants. The president, though, says the Democrats are acting irrationally, and the top Republican negotiator in the Senate is now putting the odds of a deal at just 50-50. So what comes next? Well, if they cannot agree to a deal here and soon, the president essentially has three options. One, he can agree to another short-term fix. Two, he can declare that national emergency and try and go around Congress. But, George, even many Republicans are warning against that move. Or three, he could shut down the government again,
Yeah, but
which the
there's
White
no
House is not ruling out.
There is no appetite on Capitol Hill for a shutdown right now. The other thing the president is doing is going to El Paso tonight, trying to make his case for the wall. Not clear it's going to help.
Yeah, the president will be down in the border city of El Paso outlining his case for the wall. George, he's been using that city as an example of his exaggerated claim that the wall would dramatically reduce crime. And just while the president is speaking in El Paso, one of his potential 2020 rivals will also be speaking out in the city. Former Texas Congressman Beto O'Rourke will be rallying his supporters and making his case against the
South Korea
president.
until a peace treaty is signed with the North. That's coming from General Robert Abrams as he was answering a question from the Senate Armed Services Committee on Tuesday, local time. The commander of USFK noted the former combatants have only signed an armistice agreement, merely a cessation of hostilities. Some in Seoul pointed out the general's remarks could mean that U.S. forces can withdraw once the parties have signed the peace deal. Responding to such concerns, South Korea's defense ministry pointed out on Wednesday that the allies share a firm understanding of the role and the importance of Washington's troops in maintaining peace and stability on the peninsula and in Northeast Asia, and that their presence is a matter of the two countries' alliance, not whether or not a peace treaty.
The World War II veteran who turned 100 today, and his wish. Corporal Sidney Walton enlisted on March 4th, 1941, 9 months before Pearl Harbor. He served in the U.S. Army 34th Infantry, 8th Division. That's him at the top. He served during the entire war, returned home, and raised a family. Today, Sidney turned 100. He's visiting all 50 states, hoping Americans might want to meet a World War II veteran. We sure did. Armed with a photo from his early days in the Army.
Who's this handsome devil?
Me.
I figured as much.
We asked Sidney about turning 100. He told us he wants another 100 more.
What does turning 100 mean for you?
Very good question. I'd like to another 100 years to go by.
Another 100 years to go?
On his birthday, he was honored right here in the city where he was born. Raised in Brooklyn, moved to the South Bronx, the New York City Department of Veterans Services helping him celebrate. Meeting veterans, he told Sidney, thank you.
Shake someone's hand like his.
Veteran Tommy Lloyd, a U.S. Army specialist.
To have a man of Sidney's caliber, Mr. Walton, we stood on his shoulders.
And before he left, we had a small token of thanks.
We're going to send you home with this because you are made in America. You are what America is.
You're right.
I know I'm right on that one. Congratulations. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
This message is transmitted at the request of the United States Office of Civil Defense. At 3:40 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, NORAD detected a long-range nuclear missile launch in North Korea. This missile is believed to be headed in the direction of the Los Angeles metropolitan area. It is believed that it will impact this area within the next 1.5 to 2 hours. All residents within a 400-mile radius of this area should seek a fallout shelter.